Hi, Trent. It's Fatima from the telly. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Obviously, not the result you wanted last weekend. How hard is it to come into training this week and make sure the shoulders aren't down and the heads aren't slumped?
Yeah, they've been good. Obviously, it wasn't a pretty review on Monday. I was certainly really disappointed with how that panned out. But no, we've had a really good week. They trained really well today. So yeah, I'm looking forward to watching them go around. The best thing about it is we get an opportunity, I suppose, to redeem ourselves on what happened last week.
Obviously, you had some forced changes with the guys who breached COVID, but were you expecting that scoreboard?
No, certainly not. And there was a lot of things. We had a hell of a lot of changes. Particularly to our edges. But that's no excuse. To let in that amount of points. So, Manly are red hot. They've towed up a few teams over the last month, but we certainly weren't happy with that, regardless of the team we were able to put on the paddock. So bring a bit more experience back into the team this week, and it's certainly shown even at training. So certainly expecting a better performance on Saturday.
Just on the blowout scores that we've seen since the rule changes, Wayne Pearce, who's on the Innovation Committee, came out today defending the changes. I just, want your thoughts on it. How do you think they're going? And do you think we're going through an adjustment period, or these big score lines are just, part of the game now?
Yeah, look, I think, as coaches, and we'll just adapt to the rules that we're given. It doesn't really matter whether we like them or not. I suppose there has been a lot of lopsided scores. I think the rule changes certainly make it hard, or if a team gets a big clump of possession or a hunk of possession in a game, they can score points really quickly, and it's gotten really fast. So there has been a lot of blowout scores. Some fans may like it, some don't. But as I said, we'll just play with the rules we're given. It's had to take some adjusting to, and it's certainly going to affect or influence the type of player that you do recruit in the future. And that's probably the biggest thing for us, that we need heads up on these things, because it does affect the type of player and the skill set of the player that you bring into your club.
Just on recruiting, you guys announced Jeremy Marshall-King for an extra 2 years. Guys that you've named this week, like Will Hopewade, Alpha Hickey, Renoff. What are you wanting to see from those guys for the rest of the season?
Yeah, look, just a good at it. I can't fault, guys like Hopper. He's a good professional. He's an important part of what we're doing here. So he's a really good leader and a good person to have around the club. But the biggest thing we can do is win games and be competitive. And the rest of that stuff sort of sorts itself out. So from an attitude point of view, they've been really good. It is a difficult situation for a lot of our players who are off contract, but that's part and parcel of the game, and something that we've got to deal with as well off the field. But we still expect all our players to play very well on the weekend, and that'll be no different this week.
Obviously, you've been in the headlines, re Tavita Pangai Jr. Apparently, the club's interested in him. If you are interested in him, why do you think he'll be a good fit at Canterbury?
Yeah, that one's been floated around. Look, our recruitment committee will handle that one, but obviously Tavita's a really good player, and a player that can do some damage to some teams purely with his physicality. So, I think he's a really good player, but where that's up to, I'm not too sure.
Obviously, you got the Roosters this weekend. It means Kyle Flanagan takes on his old side. How do you make sure he has his head in the space that it needs to be, and it's not an emotional game for him?
Yeah, look, he's trained really well this week. And last week we probably didn't have a hell of a lot of football to do too much with it. But defensively, probably the main areas that we need to improve. But no, he's had a really good week again and prepared well. So he's an important part of the side.
I noticed on the weekend Kyle played with a number 6 on his back. I think that was the first time this year. Can you talk us through that? Is there a reason why you put him in the number 6 jumper?
No, I think Jake Averillo's been doing a good job at halfback. He's been a real run threat there for us. So I didn't want to disrupt things too much. We had enough changes last week without changing the spine too much. So that was the reason behind that. Yeah.
Obviously, the 5 players who breached COVID have been in the news as well. The club released a statement saying they'll be fronting the board. I think there was a line as well that Dylan Napa maybe missed training after he'd been out that night. Is that true?
Yeah, look, there's some things that we've handled in-house. They're not things that I want to discuss publicly, but there is things that we keep between our players and handle them with management. So that's where that'll stay.
But obviously, you're disappointed with their actions, considering the position that it put the club in.
Yeah, 100%. It put us in a situation last week where we were without a lot of our more experienced players. So, I've spoken about that through the week. The biggest thing with us is that we need to move on from it. We need to get back on the horse, and we need to play well this weekend. Regardless of the outcome, we expect a good performance, and that's our main focus. And that has to be. We haven't spoken about it today at all. We need to move on from that and focus on winning and playing well.
Thanks, Trent.
Thank you.
Hey, Trent, it's Alicia from NRL.com. Just obviously not that you probably want to review that game last week, but Manly seems to sort of go around you a little bit. Is that something that you sort of focused on this week with the edge defence? I know it was pretty hard with those debutants coming in as well, but yeah, what did you sort of make of just the way that they were going around you last week?
Yeah, they pulled us part on the edge, and it was a lot to do with our spacings and a few things in there. So we rectify that. That's the first time that's happened all year. A few technical things there that we need to fix. So, as I said, when you make so many changes to your edges, and particularly with a lot of young blokes there, but Manly play very well. They're a threat on the ball. Turbo's good enough to be able to be a threat at A and through the middle third of the field. And if you shut that up, he's good enough to be able to go around you as well. So, look, they're a handful. I think they put 50 on a lot of teams over the last month, and we didn't handle them at all. We've had to work hard on it this week.
And just on those 5 guys, I think you mentioned after the game that you probably they weren't guaranteed to come back, but have injuries sort of just forced your hand a little bit there with those guys? And how have they been this week, just coming back into the squad?
Yeah, they've been good. Look, obviously the first part of the week was disruptive, and that's why you don't need it. As a coach, we want to have them purely focused on football and training well and preparing for their game. But when these sorts of things happen, it takes your focus away, a little bit. And we've worked really hard to try and flush that and move on, because we have to. It's not about those guys; it's about our team as a whole and our club. So we need to get over it and get a performance on Saturday.
And just on Kyle, obviously didn't get a lot of opportunity last week. Is that part of the reason why he's still in the team as well? Like, obviously with Brandon Wakeham not there.
Oh yeah, I just think we'll pick the best team that we think is there to beat the Roosters. So there's a few things that happened last week that we need to fix. Obviously, so many changes on our edges didn't help, but that's no excuse for the scoreline. And we get an opportunity to fix it this week.
And what have you made of the Roosters, Trent? Obviously coming off a really big loss themselves. What are you sort of expecting from them?
Yeah, much the same. Look, they're a big, powerful team and got a lot of experience in there. So they're a handful. Their front rowers in Takiaho and Hargraves have been at the top of their game all year, particularly Hargraves. He's playing really well. So our forwards have got a big job to do. Joey Mano's doing a good job at fullback, and young Sam Walker's playing really well too. So they've got a lot of big bodies and a lot of threat all over the field. But we need to fix, get our own backyard in order as well. With what we dished up last week. So it's probably our main focus.